I just heard some sort of sound. I don't even know what it was though. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I am Molly, and in this video I'm going to be listening to the album Ultra by Depeche Mode. Now Depeche Mode is a band I've been really wanting to get into here on the channel. I've heard a handful of some of their more recent tracks, but their full discography I've never really given a full dive into. And a lot of you have suggested their 9th studio album Ultra that they released in 1997, especially on my Crosses reaction video. A couple of you were saying in the comments that it was a big inspiration for Chino Moreno of Deftones. So knowing that, I'm even more intrigued to hear this album and yeah, just see what I'm gonna think of it. Alright, starting Ultra off is track 1, which is called Barrel of a Gun. I love how dissipated this sound is, if that makes sense. It almost reminds me of helicopter blades whirring around. This distortion that they're using on the vocals, it's giving it this really strong echoiness to it. The little beeping sounds there. Just the stuff they keep sprinkling in is a lot of fun. Okay, there's some harmonizing going on. I kind of like how they used multiple vocalists just there on certain words. The song is really playing up all of the loud and soft elements. There's a lot of dynamics going on. At times it'll sound really polished and smooth, almost futuristic, and then they bring in these harsher elements that almost have like an industrial tone to them. That was track 1, Barrel of a Gun. That first track reminded me a lot of the album Mezzanine by Massive Attack, and it's interesting that Mezzanine was released around the same time as Ultra, but similar to Mezzanine, that track just had this really amazing broodiness to it almost, just such a darkness that I really enjoyed, and they were sprinkling on all of these little electronic things too. Just a lot going on creatively with that track. There was a lot to pick up on. Okay, moving on to track 2 is the Love Thieves. I love all of these sounds that I'm hearing. Like this percussive element just has a sort of hollowness to it. With their hearts on the Bible, the hearts of the lovers, your body's a halo. There's something weirdly hypnotic about this track. Sure as Jonathan Whaler, the hearts of the lovers. Now it's almost like someone breathing. That's what this sound reminds me of. That was track 2, The Love Thieves. I kind of just sunk into that one. There was something very enveloping about it. It kind of had this soft mutedness to it. I like too how they're infusing on a tiny bit of almost like a rock element. Like I'm picking up on guitar, it sounds like from time to time, but it's fused on with all of this really cool electronic stuff as well. All right, up next is track 3, which is called Home. Man, I love this screechy sort of ambient eeriness. Here's a song from the wrong side of town. Be down. I was not expecting the orchestral elements all of a sudden. The stuff they're doing with the vocals, like when he said that clings, there was a second vocalist there, and it did almost give this impression of like sticking to you or clinging to you. It's like all these subtle things they do that really add up. From my first breath, don't send me on, little friend, belong here. All right, it sounds like some electric guitar now coming in. Like I said, it's kind of bringing this sort of rock element, sort of a heaviness to their sound, even though there's all of this really smooth atmospheric stuff going on too. Now it's like the song is almost climbing out of the darkness a little bit. It kind of has this hopeful tone coming in. It reminds me of like a flower blooming. Well, that was track 3, Home. I loved the symphonic elements of that one. Like I said, it was very unexpected when those stringed instruments came in. It just kind of took me by surprise, but it added a really, really cool element to that track. And even though there was sort of a dark, sinister quality to that song, especially at the start, it kind of had this really beautiful hopefulness to it as well. It's almost like throughout the course of that song, it grew from the dark into the light, and it kind of sprung forth from all of that sort of anxiety-ridden feeling that the beginning of the track had. But I'm going to move on to track 4, which is called It's No Good. There's such a bounciness to this one here at the start. I'm gonna take my time. Don't say you want me. Don't say you need me. There's such a clarity to this song too, man. The tone is just amazing. Like his voice is really, really clear. The song is just building up. It has this sort of like streamlined intensity to it, something very futuristic about it. It almost sounds like it could be part of a movie soundtrack. Don't say you want me. Don't say you need me. That was track 4, It's No Good. A markedly more upbeat song from that last one. I mentioned on the last one how it had all those symphonic elements and it kind of enveloped you with sound a little bit. And that track just had this cold sort of dissonance to it and kind of a sharper rhythm as well, a little bit more upbeat. I loved the percussion. It almost had like this sort of flat, like 2D sound to it, if that makes sense. Again, just kind of adding a sort of coldness to that song. All right, moving on to track 5 is Uselink. It almost sounds like you're in a cave and there's just this one noise kind of bouncing around. I love how there's so much darkness to their sound, but they put in these little chimey things that are like a flash of light in a really dark atmosphere they've created. That was track 5, Uselink. Just a little instrumental one, just over 2 minutes long. It sounded like they were just playing around with the synth and having a lot of fun with that one. I loved all of the sounds that they kept kind of adding on and layering up. Like I said at the very beginning, with just how minimal that was, it almost felt like you were kind of in this enclosed room, like a cave or something, and there was all of this echoiness to the sound. It was really cool. But I'm going to continue on with track 6, which is called Useless. I love how the sound just expanded like that. It was kind of like it had this narrow quality to its tone, and then it's like it opened up.
All my useless advice. Watch the clock on the wall.
And again, the clear tone just amazes me with this album. I love how upfront his voice is.
Echoing in my mind. You should see how it feels.
I just heard some sort of sound. I don't even know what it was though.
With the bitterest taste. All my bringing it down.
That was track 6, Useless. That one had such an amazing smoothness to it. I loved his vocal tone. Very crystalline almost. Like there's absolutely no waveriness or cracks or anything. It's very, very clear. In a weird way, there's almost something like slightly operatic about these tracks, just with his tone of voice. That combined with all of the electronic things and the experimentation that they're doing is just such a cool combination, and I just really enjoy how they're blending all of that together. All right, up next is track 7 called Sister of Night. It's like this sound is flying all over my headphones.
Sister of night that burns in desire's name, giving voice to the flame.
This song was just so kind of clear and almost angelic, and then you just had that one little warp sound come in. Just all these electronic things they're adding. I love.
I'm trembling, you heal me.
Again with the backup vocals here, it's adding like this kind of soft element to the vocals. And then this electronic tone is so jarring.
Sister of night.
And then it just shuts off like that. Like the song gets so intense and then it just completely transitions into this more slowed down, almost somber section.
I feel it too.
That was track 7, Sister of Night. That one, I was really enjoying all of the contrast they were doing between the vocals and the instrumentals. The vocals just had this amazing smoothness to them, and with the backup vocals too that they were kind of adding on, they had this sort of cushiony quality to them, like a softness. But then when those more jarring electronic tones came in, it just kind of tore you out of that, and it brought a lot more intensity and sharpness to that song. But I'm going to move on to track 8, which is called Jazz Thieves. Again, with the contrast, there's something so heavy and ominous about this background, like synth sound, but then this percussive element almost has this warm, kind of sunny, uplifting quality to it. And now it almost sounds like a clock ticking. Well, that was track 8, Jazz Thieves. It kind of reminded me of track 5, Uselink, in how it was a little bit shorter and purely instrumental, almost like a little interlude of sorts on this album. I loved how with very minimal effects, though, they created such a cool atmosphere. It was like you were surrounded by that synth sound. It kind of had this enveloping quality to it. All right, up next is track 9 called Freestate.
I can hear your soul crying. Let yourself go.
There's a really relaxing quality to this one.
Open the gates.
Yeah, I love how the lyrics kind of align with that sound too. Like kind of opening up, stepping out, removing yourself from like the cage you've put yourself in.
Let your senses overflow. Freedom's a state.
Even the sound quality of this one, it's got less of that darkness. It almost sounds more open, like you just have less of that confinement around you. Well, that was track 9, Freestate. That was a really interesting one. I would say probably the most different track on this album so far in how it had that more open quality to it. And I think it was a banjo or some sort of acoustic guitar they were using, but that twanginess was so unexpected. It kind of took away from that more electronic, sterile sound that this album has sort of had, and it added a little bit more of like this unpolished, natural quality to that song. But I'm going to move on to track 10, which is called The Bottom Line. Okay, now it's like you're being submerged underwater, and that tone at the very start almost reminded me of a submarine a little bit.
Straight back out to do it all over again. Like a pawn on the eternal board.
I like how in this one it's almost slowed down, like his voice is a little bit more down tempo. It's kind of giving this song like a slow motion quality, like you're in molasses or something.
The river flows. I feel love's wheels turning. Like a moth on love's bright line.
All right, sounds like someone chanting now in the background.
The sun will shine.
I love that electronic tone. That was track 10, The Bottom Line. I loved that end tone just there. It had so much darkness to it. But that song, I loved the progression, how it started off, it almost sounded like submarine sounds or like you were underwater. And it kind of rose up out of that. And he was saying the sun will shine. Again, kind of like how with that last song, it was like you were freeing yourself from something. That track was kind of doing that as well. It was like you were rising up out of that dark, murky, water-like atmosphere. All right, moving on to track 11 is Insight.
This is an insight.
Yeah, I love this bouncy sort of synthy percussion that they're using.
Carries me along. This is a soul dance, and the spirit of love is rising within me.
Okay, this song just got markedly more intense.
The fire still burns. Wisdom of ages.
That piano, again, it's just very out of the blue.
The spirit of love is rising within me. World still turns.
Okay, this track is starting to fade out, but there's still almost 2 minutes left. Well, that was track 11, Insight. I guess the last minute and a half of that was just dead air. The track kind of faded out, and then we just had a lot of silence at the end. I really loved that one, though. I got really absorbed in the sound of it. Toward the end, with that chorus kind of coming in and adding to the vocals, I thought that was so cool. It almost had like this hymnal quality to it. But I am really curious to see how this album is going to come to a close, so I'm going to move on to track 12, which is called Junior Painkiller. It almost sounds like a cello to me, but it's kind of been warped a little bit. And now I think I'm hearing a flute too. It sounds like a robot. Well, that was a very interesting end to that album. That was track 12, Junior Painkiller. I kind of liked how the previous track faded out so early on, and then it kind of just faded into Junior Painkiller. Just a very interesting way to end that album, something almost unsettling about it. Well, that concludes my reaction to Ultra, the 9th studio album from Depeche Mode. Depeche Mode really did a fantastic job blending so many varying sounds that I never would have expected to hear together on one album, and yet they made it really cohesive. I loved track 1, Barrel of a Gun, just a lot of punchiness to that one to get this album underway. And I think my favorite song on this album with one listen is track 4, It's No Good. Definitely one of the more speedy songs on this album, and I just loved the strong electronic tones of that one. But yeah, Ultra was a fantastic listen. I'm glad you all recommended this one to me in the comments. And Depeche Mode is one of those bands I really have not dived into much of their music, so definitely let me know in the comments if you want me to do more of their albums. And yeah, as usual, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned, and I will see you in the next video.